have no doubt that University Baptist Church has experienced as a community of faith many turns and twists in its history and in its life that bring us to this point, and somehow we wouldn't change anything about this point. Looking back over my own life, and if you, I imagine, look back through your life, there are many twists and turns that you may not have ever planned or asked for, but somehow you wouldn't change a thing. That's very much in this moment how I feel, that through the many twists and turns, that I wouldn't change a thing. Part of the twists and turns that I had in my own life brought me to Randy and Rhonda Barberstock, who are here this morning to come and share. And it's an honor and a privilege. I actually came off an airplane in the year 2000, landed in Buenos Aires, Argentina, and there was Randy and Rhonda greeting me, walking me back to their house. And I wouldn't know it, but for the next 2 years, we would very much become family together. I got to see them not only pastor at church, I got to know them as people. They were honest and genuine long before I knew what that could look like in a church. They were compassionate. They taught me what it meant to parent an adolescent. When I came, I think there was this kind of hope that the youth director would fix these adolescents, you know. And as I came to realize that I wasn't going to do it, but we were going to have some fun together, and we were going to take some trips, and we were going to serve as much as we could and laugh as much as we could. And I did very much that with Randy and Rhonda. Randy is the head, he's the director of Heart to Honduras. It is a not-for-profit agency that works with small businesses through micro-lending, through all kinds of wonderful business initiatives in Honduras to help some grassroots implementation of small business, that they develop an economy not of our giving, but of their bringing forth. It's a wonderful model. Randy has come, and they both live in Lima. Rhonda is the theater as well as choir director in Lima for a high school. What is the high school? Elida High School. She does a bit of everything, and Randy helps. They are the drama directors, producers, and they put on a wonderful show. It's in Lima, so if you can make it 2 hours, it's this weekend, actually, this coming weekend. So they're in the final tech week, getting everything ready. So what a blessing it is to be here. I'll share one quick story about Randy that you may hear again in a sermon someday. But it was my first time ever doing a youth event. We had these youth coming, these middle school and high school students coming, and I remember I had a 1980s curriculum. It was the only thing they had in Argentina, apparently. So it was all from Mike Yaconelli. And you may not know that name, but Mike Yaconelli was the youth guru throughout the 80s and 90s. So the event that I decided I was going to do was a circus. And I decided we were going to have some sort of youth circus. And I don't know the idea or where it came from or how it came about, but suddenly I was bringing out stuffed animals so that they could lead the bears around the ring kind of thing, and be silly. And I had gotten stuffed animals, and I pulled a few things out. And then Randy looked at it and he said, "Is this it? We can do more." And boy, he went all about. He raided the preschool room upstairs. He got everything he could. We had trampolines down there. We had hula hoops down there. We had an entire circus, and the kids had a blast. And one of the things that it always taught me was that you can't go too big. You can't go too big. And you can't go too big with loving. You can't go too big with compassion. You just can't. You can't go too big in belonging. You can't go too big in community. And what it meant to be there for these kids. So as a father figure, as a mentor, as a friend, as a brother, Randy has taught me a ton, and I'm so honored to be here as all through the twists and turns of life to come to this moment to celebrate and be in church together. So thank you, Rhonda. Or excuse me, thank you, Randy. And Rhonda.
Good morning. Beloved children of God, my brothers and sisters, even though I barely know you, I want you to know that in this moment I see you. I want to know you. I hold you in the mystery of God and believe that truly you are my brothers and sisters. So it's a joy to be with you this morning. And the fact that you call me Rhonda is not unusual. When my father pronounced us man and wife, he referred to us as Rondi and Randa. So the R names make for a challenge apparently, and now God has blessed us with 2 little granddaughters, and our children chose to name them Sora and Soho. So, yeah, we're still struggling to figure all of that out, but what an honor it is to be in this place in this morning. I feel like I'm awful loud, so I'm going to back off just a little bit and talk kind of, am I too loud? I just want to make, okay, good. To be part of this installation service of your pastor, and you need to know that preaching was never anything that I just had this insatiable passion to do. Actually, I resisted it most of my life. I felt a calling of God to serve in many different ways, to love people, to care for them, but preaching was never one of them. And until my time in Argentina. And I entered this moment, and you need to know this, humbly, with no certainties to proclaim, no platitudes to offer. I enter as a humble brother in Christ, who simply looks at the God story, the story of the beloved, and look for my place in that. And as we do that together, my hope is that you find your place in that God story as well. And I think that's the best that we can do, to stand in that mystery of how God loves us and how we are loved by God. So even though I don't know you, which for me is a bit of a problem, because I also have learned in my years of preaching that as a young preacher, it was all about the content. You know, I needed great background and research, and went to the Greek and went to the Hebrew and studied other writers and other pastors, because the content was everything. I think I discovered that the context is perhaps more important. That it's the people to whom God is speaking that I need to invest my time and to know. Not so much the content. And I don't have that advantage today because I don't walk among you every day. But I stand here knowing that there are parts of our story, even though I don't know the specifics of your story, that there are probably many strands of our corporate stories that intersect. And one of those is in the area of belonging. The need to belong. Tragically, in this moment in our history, we see daily people who are being pushed out of the places where they have lived, places where they thought they belonged, their homes, their schools, their countries, and they're forced into what, in my work, we call the Migrant Highway. People who feel displaced. I work with those people every day. Those people from Central America who, a few years ago we saw frequently on the news coming in caravans, and there were all kind of thoughts and politicization of all of that, but at the end of the day, they were simply people looking for a place to belong. I think we all know a little bit about that, what it is to belong, and that search to belong. I'm not going to go to the sacred text right now, but to the twisted, ingenious mind of a British children's storyteller called Roald Dahl. You remember Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, James and the Giant Peach. Well, interestingly enough, the musical that my wife and I are directing and producing right now, which will come, this is not an ad, by the way, for that musical, but you're welcome to come, is Matilda. The story of Matilda. A little girl who's born into a family and is not wanted. Her mother's more concerned about her dance competitions. Her dad doesn't even accept her gender. He wants her to be a boy, and she's a girl. Any of those strands sound familiar in the lives of people that you might know? The evil Miss Trunchbull despises her as well as all of the other children. It's a story of a little girl longing to belong. And finally finds that place of refuge, and of all places, a library with books and stories. And there she begins to see herself, and that she has an identity within that. And then it's the librarian who recognizes in her and calls forth from her the ability to recall those stories and to tell them. These imaginative adventures she has, which finally then leads her to a school and another person seeking to belong, a teacher named Miss Honey, who sees her, who recognizes in her the potential that lies in there and calls it forth. And as you know the story ends with those two people longing to belong, somehow finding their way to each other. And I love the closing line of the story, which says simply, and Matilda leapt into Miss Honey's arms and felt her warm embrace, and they found each other. Where do you belong? Hopefully this is one of those places. Maybe this is your library. And maybe all around you right now in this moment are librarians and Miss Honeys and all of those types who see you and know you. You see, belonging begins with this sense that we matter, but not just that we matter in isolation, but that we matter in relationship to other people. That other people see us. They know us. They receive us. I used to say that they accept us, but I'm not sure accept goes far enough anymore. You see, you can accept someone in your mind, but not really receive them. I think a better way to describe it is that we hold someone in all that they are. We hold them in our embrace. In their confusion, in their messiness, in their struggles, and in everything. We hold them in patience. We hold them in love. To me, that's a better description of belonging than merely to accept another person. But all of those things are part of that deep level of belonging. And so we go on these searches to find where we belong. And we look for people who think like us and who have the same interests as we do. We turn to friend groups. We turn to fraternities. We turn to student associations. We turn to even faith communities. But honestly, part of my story is this is the first time in a long time I've been in or part of a faith community. Because in recent years, I've not found a lot of faith communities a place where I felt I could belong. Because of who I am, because of what I thought, because of my understanding of who God was. So all of those entities, to some degree, fill that longing, but not all the way. And yet God desires something for us that's deeper, that deeper sense of belonging. It goes all the way back to the beginning of the God story. When God knew and created us, and we were fully seen, and we were fully known, and we were fully held by God, and we were fully empowered by God. And it was a beautiful existence. It's the metaphor of the Garden of Eden. A place to belong, fully. And yet the seed of doubt was planted in our mind that the one who loved us most couldn't be trusted. And so then the story begins of our wandering. And chapter after chapter, and verse after verse, the sacred Judeo-Christian text is really about our wandering, looking again to belong in some place, in some form. And there were moments when we experienced that, and in those moments we tried to enshrine that moment and put all kind of form and structure around it and ritual so that if we kept doing these things, we would belong. And religion was born out of that. And while it served us to some degree, it also through time it lost its sense of belonging. And its rigidity caused people to feel either on the inside or the outside. And all of a sudden, this wonderful story of belonging is no longer a story of belonging, but if you belong, if you do this and that and everything else, and if you don't, then you don't belong. And then came the incarnate God, in the beloved Christ, who reminded us again that he sees us, that he knows us intimately, that he receives us and holds us in his embrace. Zacchaeus, no one else loves you, but get down here. I want to go hang out with you for a while. Let's go over to Starbucks, have some coffee. He sees us. He knows us. He receives us. Woman, where's everyone that was condemning you? Where'd they all go? Gone? Neither do I condemn you. Neither do I condemn you. I receive you. I hold you. He stoops and kneels before us to wash our feet, to hold in his hands the very essence of who we are, not just our feet, but all of us. That is what it is to belong. And so out of that belonging comes these metaphors, and therein lies the text that were read today. You're wondering, we never got to Isaiah, we never got to Romans. But Paul gives this beautiful example, this beautiful metaphor of what it truly is to belong, and that it's a body that where everyone is an integral part of it, and it doesn't matter the gifts and the diversity that each of us have. It doesn't matter our uniqueness. Every part is essential to that body, and that body works together in such a cohesive way, and that cohesiveness is called love. And then Isaiah's metaphor takes us back to a garden and refers to a time of a desert when we're dry and thirsty, but that there is this garden of living water that springs from this sense of well-being and belonging, and that then he tasks us. If we are to be part of that garden, then there are things that we should do. We should be looking for others who yet do not belong, those who are in need, those who are hungry, those who are in prison, those who are oppressed. And he goes on and on and on, and he said, we will be the restorer of walls, the rebuilder of homes. Which brings us full face back to this idea of belonging. What is home but that place where we are ultimately known in every dimension of who we are, even the things that we'd rather not be known? Home. Home is that presence in the beloved, that presence with each other. We belong. God desires that we belong to the beloved, but not only that we belong to each other. And he tasked us then to go out into a world. This is what missions is all about. It's not necessarily going and just preaching and proclaiming good news. It's going out and being wherever I am, that safe place, that place where when others enter into my presence, they know immediately I'm home. I belong. We celebrate your pastor today, and he asked that I share no stories about him. But I'm going to take one slight liberty here. Nothing terribly embarrassing. Actually, it's a word of thanks to Adam. Ironically, pastors, and I know there's some pastors among us here this morning, you can, because you stand in a public place and people know you, there's a sense in which you belong and you belong to this community, and yet there's also a sense in which you're not known. That, I don't know, maybe some other pastors will understand that you walk away and you feel as if in your task to lead and shepherd a congregation, that there is a huge part of you that remains unknown to everyone else. And I found myself at that place in my ministry 22 years ago in Buenos Aires, Argentina. And it was this young brash college student, straight out of Anderson University, who came into our life to serve a role within the life of our community, who brought with him this ability to see me and to know me, to probe my heart, to push back at times and ask me questions. I mean, he's the first person who would, at times, I'd run some sermon ideas by him and he would look at me and challenge them. And I'm thinking, whoa, wait a minute, But that's part of being seen and known. When somebody pushes back in your life and asks questions, that probing sense, you know that you're known. They're not just giving you platitudes and stuff like that. And Adam did that for me. He not only did that for me, he did that for my family, he did that for my adolescent son in that moment. And there was no expectations that you change him or save him. But Adam created that space where I felt I was known, where I felt I could belong. Even on those days when leading a community, I felt like, what am I doing here? I don't belong. And I'll forever be grateful for that. And I know that part of his coming to you, I know that you will feel seen, that you will feel known, that you will feel received, and you will feel held by his love. But my challenge to you today is that you do that for him as well. That as your pastor, you check in on him. That you see him, that you know him, that you recognize those days he's struggling, and that you hold him in your embrace. That's what it is to be pastor in congregation. And so I leave that with you today as your challenge, knowing that Adam Davis, your new pastor, will be one who receives you into his love, and that this will be a place of belonging, not only for each of you, but for the greater community around. May God bless you in this journey together as pastor and community. I am so excited for all of you. Amen.